In the depths of Colombia's rural regions, a sinister cycle of revenge has been unfolding for decades. But it was in 2017 that the full extent of its brutality came to light, leaving an indelible mark on the nation. A staggering statistic emerged from the shadows, one that would shake the very foundations of Colombia's fragile peace process. According to official reports, over 1,200 peasants were brutally slaughtered by right-wing paramilitaries between 1997 and 2017. These numbers are not just statistics, they represent families torn apart, communities ravaged, and a nation left to grapple with the consequences of unchecked violence. The victims' names were etched into the memories of their loved ones: Juan Carlos Torres, Elena Vesquez, and Antonio Garcia, among countless others. Their stories serve as a poignant reminder that behind every statistic is a human being, torn from this world by an ideology driven by bloodlust and vengeance. As we delve deeper into the dark cycle of revenge, it becomes clear that the roots of this violence run far beyond the surface. We find ourselves at the intersection of decades-old land disputes, narco-trafficking, and government corruption, where the lines between perpetrator and victim blur into a sea of gray. Colombia's rural regions have long been plagued by the legacy of Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, which laid the groundwork for the paramilitary groups that would later wreak havoc on innocent civilians. And at the helm of this maelstrom was Álvaro Uribe Vélez, Colombia's former president, who has faced accusations of complicity in the massacres. The revelation sent shockwaves through the international community, sparking renewed calls for accountability and an end to impunity. But as we now embark on a journey to uncover the truth behind this deadly cycle of revenge, one thing becomes clear: the true horror lies not in the numbers or the names, but in the depths of human depravity that drove these atrocities. The cycle of revenge has been a perpetual engine of human conflict, driving wars, assassinations, and brutal violence for centuries. Its insidious tendrils have wrapped themselves around the world's most intractable conflicts, fueling endless cycles of retaliation that seem to defy all attempts at resolution. In 2017, a grim milestone was reached in Colombia's rural regions, where over 1,200 peasants were killed by right-wing paramilitaries. This staggering number underscored the devastating impact of the cycle of revenge on ordinary people caught in the crossfire of ideological and territorial disputes. The killings began in earnest with the arrival of the AUC, or Autodefensas Unidos de Colombia, a far-right militia group that rose to power in the 1990s. Their brutal campaign aimed to eliminate anyone deemed a threat to their control over lucrative coca plantations and mining interests. As the AUC's grip on these rural regions tightened, peasants and community leaders who dared resist or speak out against their rule were systematically targeted for assassination. In some cases, victims' families were forced to flee their homes, while others were coerced into surrendering to the paramilitaries or risking summary execution. The true scale of this violence was only slowly revealed as local activists and human rights groups began documenting the atrocities in meticulous detail. Their efforts have shed light on the involvement of corrupt military officers, politicians, and business leaders who either directly supported the AUC or turned a blind eye to their brutality. One such case involved the town of San José de Apartado, where over 150 community members were killed by the AUC between 1997 and 2003. Many of these killings remain unsolved, despite promises from Colombian authorities to bring perpetrators to justice. As we dive deeper into the complexities of revenge, a pivotal moment in Colombia's history came to light. In 2017, a staggering statistic was revealed: over 1,200 peasants had been brutally murdered by right-wing paramilitaries in rural regions. The names and faces of these victims were etched into the collective memory of the nation, sparking outrage and calls for justice. One such case involved the town of La Llanura, where 27-year-old Juan de Dios Urdaneta was killed alongside 3 others in a single night. The perpetrators, known as the Aguilas Negras, left no doubt about their motives: a scathing message painted on the wall, reading "Para los campesinos," for the peasants. This pattern of violence would repeat itself across the country, with entire families being systematically targeted and eliminated. In some cases, victims were buried in shallow graves or even fed to wild animals. The sheer scale of this atrocity led Colombian authorities to launch an investigation into the Aguilas Negras activities. The evidence mounted as witnesses came forward, recounting tales of forced displacement, rape, and extortion committed by the paramilitaries. Satellite imagery revealed a network of clandestine burial sites, while forensic analysis uncovered links between the attackers and powerful politicians. This toxic cycle of revenge had entrenched itself in Colombian society, fueled by the perpetual conflict with FARC guerrillas. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos condemned these atrocities, promising to bring perpetrators to justice and provide support for victims' families. But critics argued that his administration's policies were insufficient, and that the root causes of this cycle, land inequality, poverty, and social injustice, remained unaddressed. As we delve deeper into the cycle of revenge, it's crucial to examine the real-world implications and underlying dynamics that perpetuate such violence. The case of Colombia's rural regions serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences. Between 2007 and 2011, an estimated 1,228 peasants were killed by right-wing paramilitaries in the departments of Antioquia, Bolívar, and Cesar. This figure represents only a small fraction of the estimated 6,500 forced disappearances that took place during this period. The victims' families, who were mostly peasant farmers and rural workers, were often targeted for their perceived left-wing sympathies or for resisting land seizures by paramilitary groups backed by powerful landowners and politicians. The mastermind behind these atrocities was Álvaro Uribe's successor, Juan Manuel Santos, during his presidency. Despite efforts to demobilize the paramilitaries through peace talks with the FARC guerrilla group, many of its leaders were allowed to escape prosecution or face lenient sentences. Research by Colombian human rights groups reveals that the same pattern of violence is still unfolding today. Since 2017, there have been over 200 reported cases of peasant killings in the region, with minimal accountability for those responsible. This cycle of revenge has created a culture of fear and impunity, where civilians are caught between competing forces vying for control. The international community's efforts to address these human rights abuses often fall short due to concerns about regional stability and economic interests. In the name of stability or security, governments may tolerate or even collude with paramilitary groups, perpetuating the cycle of revenge and silencing dissenting voices. As the bloodshed continued to escalate in Colombia's rural regions, a turning point emerged that would shed new light on the dark cycle of revenge. In 2017, a chilling report by human rights group Codes revealed that over 1,200 peasants had been brutally murdered by right-wing paramilitaries between 1996 and 2014. The statistics painted a grim picture. In just 2 decades, more than 1,000 innocent lives were lost to the cycle of revenge. But what drove these senseless killings? Researchers discovered a disturbing pattern. Each murder was often followed by another, as if the killing spree had become a twisted game of cat and mouse between rival groups. The peasants, who had initially been targeted for their suspected links to leftist guerrilla groups, became collateral damage in a larger conflict fueled by ideology and greed. One victim's story stood out, that of Ana Maria Giraldo, a young mother who was gunned down along with her family in 2007. Her husband's brutal murder sparked a revenge killing that would claim the life of a local paramilitary leader, only to be followed by another retaliatory attack, and so on. The cycle showed no signs of abating, as if each group had become trapped in an endless loop of retaliation. In fact, statistics suggest that up to 70% of peasant killings were carried out by right-wing paramilitaries seeking revenge for previous attacks. This deadly cycle has been dubbed the revenge effect, a phenomenon where violence begets more violence, leaving countless innocent lives lost in its wake. The question remains, can this destructive cycle ever be broken? Or will it continue to perpetuate itself, fueled by an insatiable hunger for vengeance? The stark reality of the dark cycle of revenge has been laid bare before us. In Colombia's rural regions, a blood-soaked legacy of violence has left an indelible mark on the lives of over 1,200 peasants who fell victim to the brutal tactics of right-wing paramilitaries in 2017 alone. The data paints a chilling picture. Between 1980